Hello and welcome back everyone. In this video I take a look back at an absolutely groundbreaking game by Sega, and a game which really shifted the focus onto 3D polygon games as the future for action games. Virtua Cop was probably the first light gun game I ever played that felt like you were part of an action sequence, but more akin to a TV show action sequence, not the big Hollywood action sequences you understand. Developed on the Sega Model 2 hardware and released in 1994, Virtua Cop was notable for its use of real-time 3D polygon graphics with texture mapping, with Sega advertising it as the world's first texture-mapped polygon action game. Emphasising the real-time nature of the game, enemies would react differently depending on where they were shot. It also came as a 2-player cabinet to help recreate the feeling of the buddy action pairing of popular cop shows. When looking at the visuals, you have to remember this was 1994, and this blocky looking style of polygons was considered cutting edge. I mean, it all looks pretty flat today, right? But back then it was amazing to see. It made it feel like you were playing a cop shootout simulator or something. And let's not be too harsh, these visuals are fine. Brilliant back then, but still fine today. Everything is still easy to see and make out on the screen. You can easily tell bad guy from good guy, and there are no colour clashes or anything. As you play, the camera moves you around the entire environment, as if you are walking through the scene. Other light gun games had this more rigid nature of either scrolling left or right, or moving forward, and some, like Line of Fire by Sega, combined the two to make it seem more like a first-person game. But the way Virtua Cop takes you around the action is just excellent. The movement is super silky smooth, and the camera even zooms in on the enemies at certain points. It's as if you are looking closer at the bad guys. And speaking of the bad guys, you wouldn't need much help in identifying them, as this large target starts to appear around them, and there is also an indication of when they will shoot. The target starts green, but starts to flash this orangey red, and then 2 arrows lock at 12 and 6, and that's you in the enemy's crosshairs, so you do need to be quick.
Help me!
The music and sound is just so spot on, with some good tunes, some rather excellent sound effects, and lots of background noises for the vehicles and other objects, so it's not a dull sounding game. The music in particular really does help with this cop TV show theme. They do sound like they would fit in with TJ Hooker or something, and by this point, sound and music in arcade games had gotten to the point that everything sounded pretty much authentic anyway. But sometimes a terrible composition would make it through and ruin things. But not in this game. It's just perfect, really. The gameplay is great, although I have to say the game does not move at a really fast pace. It kind of meanders about. Remember when I said the camera moves around the environment as if you were walking through the scene? Well, I wasn't lying. When you consider it's a gun battle, you would have thought the cops would like to get a hustle on, but not in Virtua Cop. They walk around the scene like Andy Dufresne walks around a prison yard, without a care or worry in the world. Maybe these cops are clones of Chuck Norris or something. But even with the slow pacing of the action, you do get some quick gunfights. At certain moments, you have to chain a couple of shots off in quick succession as bad guys appear in sequence. And that part is incredibly satisfying, especially if you manage to pull it off.
Help me!
There are power-ups scattered around at various points, which include an automatic rifle and machine gun, but the main weapon is the trusty 6-shooter. Only having 6 bullets means you need to be accurate with your shots, and at the sequences I just mentioned a moment ago, that is where you can quickly get caught out. So this game is amazing, right? Well, it still suffers from pretty much the same flaw found in every other shooter before it. You need to shoot the enemy before they shoot you, as you have no control over your character's movements. But by this time, this flaw was just accepted as part of the gameplay, and people just got on with having loads of fun. And what a real load of fun this game is. Obviously, this is one of those games where my crackshot mate done really well, but as the pacing of the action was less frenetic than other shooters, I did alright too. And this is one of those arcade games that I just love to have a go on. I didn't even mind paying the £1 for a credit. And it was games like this and Daytona USA that really did make me want a Sega Saturn, which was not too far away from a launch in Japan. And I felt that Sega were getting back on track with their recent releases of great arcade games. But how was the Saturn version of Virtua Cop going to fare? The Sega Saturn was a complicated beast, sporting multiple CPUs. It was really difficult to develop for, and this kinda drove third-party developers away from Sega and into the arms of Sony. But as this was a Sega game, you would have thought that it would have been easy for them to port it across to the Saturn. Well, I think this port is a damn good effort by Sega, but it's immediately obvious that the visuals had taken a knock, which was quite discouraging for a lot of Saturn owners to see, as the Saturn was in development at the same time that this game was being developed for the arcades, and it looks like the Saturn was already going to be struggling recreating the same high quality visuals as current gen arcade hardware. But personally, I never found an issue with the visuals. at home on a CRT, it looked brilliant. It looked and sounded as close to the arcade as you were ever likely to get at home. Not only that, but it came with this practice mode, which was in the style of a shooting gallery. A neat addition, although I do suspect it was used to help the player get their eye in with the bundled gun. The game came bundled with this Virtua gun. You know, the kind that Joe Lieberman and Herb Cole would say looked too realistic, even though it's blue and clearly made out of plastic. And there was an option for a red one as a separate purchase, just to complete that 2-player arcade experience at home. And boy, did this game manage to do that. This was an absolutely fantastic game to play at home on the Saturn. It wasn't a game I purchased, as I had really shifted my focus to the PlayStation, but a mate of mine had it and I always enjoyed having a 2-player game on it. He also had a massive 28-inch CRT TV. A 28-inch TV was considered large in 1996, and this large screen just helped with the arcade feel of the game, and honestly, even though the visuals had taken a bit of a knock, the playability certainly hadn't, and that's what matters most, that the game is fun to play. Unfortunately, with most light guns at home, you pay a load to get that first game that comes with the gun, and then you hardly get any other games really that utilise it. But I was working and earning okay money, and my mate was working too, and so throwing away £100 on a game that you would play a few dozen times with peripherals that served no purpose without the game, it was no big deal. And I can remember challenging each other to drink a shot for each level where we would get less than 80% accuracy. And within an hour, we were intentionally missing just for another shot of tequila. Good times are not just a preserve of Johnny Walker, you know. Virtua Cop was a major influence on both light gun shooters as well as first-person shooters. When it was released in 1994, the game broke new ground by introducing the use of 3D polygons to the shooter genre. Some of the popular light gun rail shooters influenced by Virtua Cop include the Time Crisis series, the House of the Dead series, various Resident Evil spin-offs, and Dead Space Extraction. But like anything, the first with something will always inspire others to improve on it, and only a year later, Namco released a light gun game that absolutely revolutionised this genre. But that is a video for another time. And that was my look back at Virtua Cop. If you liked this video, then please do all the usual like, comment and subscribe malarkey. And a massive thank you to all of those who have commented and subscribed already. Your feedback and support really does go a long way in helping the channel grow, and I do appreciate all of you. So thank you from me. And that's all from me, folks. Thanks for watching.
Reload.